Hi friends! Today we're diving into Natasha Denona's Sunrise palette, but first, if it's your first time here, hi, I'm Alicia. Thank you so much for clicking on my video, and if you are returning, well, thank you for visiting me again. Kinky Sweat stands for my kinky hair and sweat life. I am a fitness professional who loves things, all movement and beauty. If you want to check out what I do in between the makeups, you can head over to my Instagram. Thank you, Courtney, for suggesting that we revisit Sunrise. I recently dove back into Pat McGrath's Decadence, and many of you were just enthusiastic about me revisiting old palettes because I was saying in that original video that I was becoming overwhelmed with all the new releases. And even though I have some interest, I just can't do it right now. I want to use the makeup that I already have. So I thought, you know what? Let's get into it. I thought, what a great idea. So here we have Sunrise. I think when we first saw this, we were excited about it, but when diving into it, it's like, whoa, these are pretty punchy. And before we begin, let's draw you in a little closer. That's enough. You like my earrings from ISLYNYC? Unfortunately, these are not sold online. As far as I know, they're in-store exclusives, but when I saw this on ISLYNYC stories, I mean, the Suns, come on. They're from the Hot Girl Summer Collection. Amazing. Mermaids, dolphins, seashells, fire flames. All of it is happening. We're prepping the lids. Here we go. Let me zhuzh this on. If it's your first time seeing this video, I have a lot of Natasha Denona palette tutorials. I think it helpful to kind of figure out how to navigate color stories, because the way she designs her palettes is that no matter what you encounter, a trio, a quad, a diagonal trio, a column, however you dissect it, is a look. And I think that's what stands out about Natasha Denona color curations, is that there is a plan. Although it might not seem obvious at first, when you start to experiment and combine different shades, I think that's definitely the magic behind Natasha Denona palettes. But what I found to be the critique about Sunrise is that it's not the most daily friendly palette. And I agree, because you have these hardy yellows and yellow oranges. You have the mattes here that when you apply them, it could be a lot, right? Depending on your skin tone. I do think, however, if you're a little more strategic with how you apply them, it could still be daily friendly. So I wanted to start with what I think to be the most daily friendly shade in here, Laurel. It's more of a champagne gold. I think really appropriate, as you'll see now, to place on your lid, right? If you were to just use your finger and tap that on the lid, that could be like your one and done moment. You could pull some brown eyeliner on the lash line. If you want, you could also use this shade as just inner corner highlight. So I'll take my Refer 28 brush. This is a flat shader one, but I could still use it for my inner corner. Just put it here, and you could also pull it under the lower lash line a little bit, so that gives a really nice highlight to the skin. Agate is more yellow in tone, I believe. So in the same way we applied Laurel on the lid, you could also apply Agate on the lid. I like, though, to go in with Dayspring. Dayspring has a little more, is not quite the same consistency as Laurel. I think it has more of like a sparkle thing going on. So I'm actually moving in with the same 28 brush, and I'm plopping Dayspring on the outer portion of my lid, using tapping motions to deposit the color first, so you can kind of shape it around the outer portion of your lid. Going in with my Refer number 1 brush with no product, and I'm going along the edges of the metallics that we applied. And definitely, again, liner, or maybe you take a dark brown shadow. That's the thing also to note. There's no dark neutrals in here. You either have to rely on Clove or Glory. right? So if you don't want to do that though, it could be a problem, but it's okay. I'm sure we all have a dark brown shadow somewhere in our collection. However though, if you did want to use a matte, we could use Morgan, which is this peachy matte here, zhuzh it along the crease over the edges of the metallics, and that can definitely grow the look to be a little more dimensional. Yes, if you don't just want to rely on the shiny shades, if you want to incorporate a little more from this palette, most definitely you could go in with Morgan. If you want a little more from that, let's tap into Morning and even higher on the edges of Morgan, so you can create a really nice gradient from peach to this warm, I want to say it's like it's a yellowy beige. It's actually quite nice. I think pairs really nicely with Morgan, yeah? So you have a little bit of a warmer bronze moment here on the outer corner, I keep saying corner, lid, and then you have like this peachier champagne on the center. I would even say we could go in with agate and place that on the inner lid instead and have both agate and laurel overlap a little bit. I think that's very pretty. Yeah, so that's something you can do. If you wanted to incorporate one of these shades, let's say you did want to go in with Clove, I'm using the same 28 brush, pulling that color along the lash line. So I think fun to introduce a non-traditional color to your lash line that's not black or dark brown or even a neutral brown. If you have these different shades at your disposal, I think it's fun to incorporate them in the same manner that you would a neutral matte, but see how it goes when, you know, it takes on different tasks. You could definitely spice it up. So I'm just pulling it a little higher here to have it appear more distinct. You can definitely, again, skip this step altogether, but I think it's fun to just kind of see what it can do. So I definitely went in with that a lot. You don't have to do as much as I did. You could definitely take a smaller brush if you wanted, but it works out pretty well. All right, that's one look. I like what's happening. If you wanted, you can apply Morgan, that peach matte shade, under the lash line. I typically like to wear shadows under my lash line. I just feel it completes the look, but you do not have to take on that step. If you feel the lid is enough, go for it. But you know how I always like to introduce like a fun color to the inner lower lash line. So I'm taking a much smaller brush here. This is the flat definer from Sonia's Kiyaki set. Aster, which is a really pretty purple duochrome, or even Azalea. Azalea could be pretty too. Taking flat definer and placing that on the inner part of the lash line. So if you felt very intimidated by these different metallic shades and you didn't quite know how to incorporate them, you most certainly can on the inner part of the eye. And don't mind me, I'm just further refining this smoky wing because I'm so picky. You know, every time you go back in, it just gets larger and larger. But the flat definer is, I feel, one of the best brushes that I have to really like clean the line up well. If you wanted to have a lot of fun, you could use Glory, which is the magenta matte, and maybe put Glory on the inner corner so it could overlap and have a really nice gradient. So it goes from the magenta pink into more like that maroon. I think that's pretty. All right, we spent enough time on that eye. If you were like, you know what, Alicia, I don't think I can do it because when I start incorporating Glory or even Jasper, it gets a little too warm for me. And I get it, but you know, I think you should just try it, because maybe if we try applying another metallic that's not purple, maybe it won't appear as like hardy on the lid. So I'm trying to find, let me see what brush. Taking my Refer 15 here. I think I want to go straight in with carnelian. I'm going to go carnelian, and I know it's a lot. It's already, you're like, forget it. I don't like it. I'm keeping carnelian on the upper part of the crease because I want to introduce another matte lower, but I don't want the colors to overlap too much. I want them to appear a little more distinct. So I'm keeping it higher on the crease, and then we can go in with Jasper, and I'll tap that on the outer part of the lid, and you see where we're getting hot summer girl moments right here with this burnt orange shade, and then combining it with carnelian. But I think it's nice. You know, this is kind of what you would expect, I think, when you see Sunrise. This is definitely a way to go, and I like to go back and forth between carnelian and Jasper, and I'm floating carnelian on the very edges here so that you can have that gradient. But I'm actually going to use citrine, the lighter yellow, and apply it higher on closer to the brow. So you see it's lighter in color, but I think more of an appropriate shade to blend closer to the brow, as it won't overwhelm the skin. It's just going to continue that gradient, which I think really pretty. All right, so we got that down. If you're already like not liking this, I get it. But I feel like you want to try it. I think you should give it a go. Jasper on the outer lower lash line here. Yeah, just to complete the edge of what we did on the lid. So connecting those 2 points. Now what can we do? We can actually do Glory and do an all matte eye. That will be fun. We could either go in with Poppy, we could go in with Flux. I think let's do Poppy, because Poppy is not as red as Flux, but I think an interesting change of undertone to be combined with the warmer mattes we have in here. I think definitely, let's see what happens. This is Smith 253 brush. I appreciate the angle of this packer design. It also comes in a slightly bigger design, but I think the small brush is quite helpful for refining lid packing, especially when you get in on the inner part of the eye. I'm feeling Aster as our standout inner corner moment, overlapping Poppy. I think that would look so pretty. Yeah, especially in combination with the yellows and the oranges we have on the outer part of the lid. It's a nice, you know, change of color pace. All right, so that's going on. And then we can do, we could actually go in with Awakening. We didn't use Awakening yet. So I'm dipping back into my flat definer from Sonia G. Going in with Awakening and using that as our inner corner moment. Yeah, that could be something. So we're gonna place it there, and I'm pulling it through the lash line so it can combine with, let's see here, Jasper, because I pulled Jasper on the lower lash line, but I'm gonna pull it in closer to Awakening just so that they can combine. And actually a little bit of citrine here on the very edges of Jasper. I'm using very light pressure here to just continue that gradient lightly on the lower part of the eye so we can mimic what's happening here on the top part. All right, we're gonna slap on some lashes. All right, a little gloss and braid and affair just to tie everything together. And here's a finished look, a wide shot of both. I really love the first round. I think we utilized the lighter metallics well so they can have some impact on the lid. and then went in with the deeper mattes to create the wing or create some smoke. But in this eye, you see it's definitely more of a gradient color rich smoke than your typical neutral type of a moment. So let's get into round 2. I want to create 2 more looks because maybe we can steer those looks to be more of the magenta purple moments they have in the palette, and we'll see how we could further utilize the other matte shades to perhaps create another daily friendly look from Sunrise. I'll see you in a bit. Glory, maybe the magenta shade. I actually wanted to go in with Flax because one thing I really love about Natasha Denona Metallics, although she changes the formula from time to time, really don't know where you're gonna get sometimes. The smooth metallic formula, much like Pat's metallic formula in Decadence, very smooth. So I'm just plopping it on the lid, and you can see how I don't need another shade. Wait, wrong way. There, that's better. To smooth out and blend out the metallics, and it's very smooth still, even though we're diffusing the edges here. Yeah. However, if you wanted to or insist on using another matte, you could go in with any of these, but I think I want to keep the edges very soft. So let's use Morgan, the peachy matte, to just diffuse the edges of Phlox. Yeah, so it's not super intense just yet. We're already on the fringe of intense a little bit, I think, here, because Phlox, as you see, has nice impact. It's fiery red. It's shiny. So I think we already committed. And if we wanted, we can go in with another shade altogether on the lower lash line. The thing is, I don't know. We can do Azalea. We could also do, we could just stick with Phlox. But I want to introduce another shade. So this is Azalea. It's not as smooth as Phlox. This is more what I would consider like a topper metallic. It has a little more dazzle and movement in the texture. It's not as straightforward as Phlox, which means you could also put it on top of Phlox if you want. So if I were to take Azalea and just tap it here, you see how that creates a nice highlight and introduces another color to the lid and definitely makes it appear more dimensional. I do want to use Agate as our inner corner highlight here. So this is our Refer 28 brush, which we used on the first eye look, and I'm pulling it from around the top towards the bottom here and using the tip of the brush to overlap that shade over Phlox, and using the same brush just to kind of refine what's going on here with Azalea, because I like that kind of drop in the texture under the lash line. I think that's very pretty. This is my Tuckahoe T7 brush. It's a little flatter than my Refer number 1, which sometimes I need to just refine the outer edges here to make sure it doesn't get out of control, and floating the brush here to create more of a diffused look. But if it doesn't work out, you could always use your finger to tap around it so that it could look a little more blended. Let's go in with Awakening. I think let's see what's happening here. So I'm slapping that right on the center of the lid. I'm using my finger to plop that color on. Definitely reminds me of Awakening. It has a little more shine than Phlox or Poppy, but still smooth. So we're still in the smooth category of things. But as promised, let's use Glory. So tapping Glory on the outer portions of the lid as well as the inner. So creating these brackets of color around Awakening. And since Awakening has like a lavender tinge to it, I thought appropriate to pair with Glory and its magenta tone. And now we'll combine both sections here, and we might have to go back in with Awakening. That's totally fine. You could either go in with the metallic first, or you could go in with the matte first. I think either will work, and using very light pressure here to just gently manipulate the product so it doesn't get overwhelming, so it doesn't overblend. It just stays where it needs to go. but I think that very pretty. And if you wanted, you can maybe go in with citrine, or even, actually, let's do morning and use morning to even further diffuse the edges of glory. If you don't want to go back in with glory, and I could also use a fluffier brush, but this is working out pretty well. And I'm just further cleaning up the inner part of the eye here. And you see that awakening dropped a little bit. So let's go back in with our finger. You could also use a packer brush to apply the color, but that works out very well in that we're now introducing the metallic again, so it has that beautiful shine. If you want, you could go back in with Glory, that magenta matte, and just lightly tap over the edges of the borders so that they could look more diffused and seamless. Mimicking kind of what we did on this eye, let's use Aster now as our prominent lower lash line color. So this is not, again, as impactful as Glory or even Awakening. It has more of a scatter effect, but I think really nice to place under the lash line. And if you wanted, you can definitely pull down some of Glory just to overlap the outer edges a touch more if you want to establish that continuity from the lid down to the lower lash line. So I'm not brushing in, I'm just lightly tapping in, or rather on that matte. So it looks a little more seamless there in the transition, and then lightly brushing up here. I got a little bit of shadow from the Awakening application, so I'm taking my Sonergy soft concealer, and now with a very light cleanup, not a lot of product, with the soft concealer, tapping around the edges of our application. So if you wanted to eliminate some of that drop of shadow, you can definitely go and lightly tap around the edges to reestablish the shape. And that's a great way also to clean up any overblending that might have occurred. This is something I love to do because it happens, right? We have all the best intentions to be as careful with our eyeshadow application as possible, but sometimes you just gotta go back and sweep. Laurel. Ooh, you know what? Let's do Dayspring. Let's do Dayspring as the active inner lower lash line color choice, because we could also still use Laurel as our inner corner highlight, or why not? Let's use Citrine. Let's go matte instead. You could go in with Citrine as our inner corner highlight, tap it, and layer that sucker on, because if you really want it to show as yellow, you could also apply like a very light, almost maybe white base just on this portion here, so the yellow can appear more vibrant. But I think that's pretty good. I'm tapping in a little more Glory just to further streamline this transition here, because I don't want it to appear abrupt. I want it to flow really nicely from one color to the other. Now I'm revisiting this eye because there's a little something that I want to finish, but just like we did with the other eye, I could also just tap around and try to reshape the blend a little bit more. Oh my heavens, my brow is nearly done. Woo! All right, slapping on lashes and I'll be right back. We are done. And again, here's a wide shot of both looks. I know they might not be the most daily friendly, but I just love the shades. I love how you can combine them, whether it be the magenta and the crimson or the yellow with the peach. You can definitely do a lot, but I know they're more impactful than, let's say, glam or even bronze, right? Bronze is, I think, out of the minis, my most favorite Natasha Denona palette. Like, I can't get enough of those tones. But revisiting Sunrise, I think, reminded me of how much I love to just play with color, and especially these, the lavender, the magnolia. I was gonna say magnolia. marigold, the more terracotta oranges, and you have like the beiges here that have different nuances of undertones. So I had a blast going back into this palette, and do let me know if you revisited Sunrise, what you think about it when you first bought it. Were you excited when you saw it, and when you got it you changed your mind because you're like, whoa? But again, these colors are definitely in my wheelhouse in terms of ones that I tend to gravitate towards or even just have fun with from time to time, and this was a blast to revisit. So let me know which one we should do next. I was thinking, you know what, I still have this palette. Someone has suggested the Vieta, because this is very color specific. This is a lot of fun. I don't know what I do with my other Anastasia palettes. I have to take a look, but we can do another Pat McGrath. We could do another Natasha Denona. Do let me know in the comments below. I'll see you there, and until then, fam, that is a wrap. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video helped. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and maybe consider subscribing to my channel. And until then, I will see you in here again with another review tutorial, old fave eyeshadow palette extravaganza, monthly favorites, or lunchtime chit chat. Take care, and I will see you again soon.